Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
All right, we're back with the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcast network. This is episode 159. I am Charlie Carden, your humble servant, Trek Lord to West Michigan, joined as always by my number one, Mr. Peter Stein. Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon.
All right. Well, we've got a fun show today. We've got more news than we generally pack into even just a couple of episodes because as we're recording this, New York Comic Con is wrapping up in New York City. There was a Star Trek Universe panel. There was a ton of news. There were a ton of product reveals that go around that news. So we're gonna touch on those, but I'm also trying to get better at dropping those links in the show notes. So if you want to go check those out while you're listening to the program, you can do that as well. And then give us your feedback. I always like to mention, and maybe I'll bump this up further in the show notes to remind myself, but always feel free to drop an email over to the mailbag at secretfriendsnight@gmail.com. Both Peter and I monitor that mailbag. We want to hear from you, things that you're digging on with Star Trek or any of the stuff that we talk about on our multitude of shows.
Or something you want us to look at.
Yeah, Peter and I were talking about that and not Trek related right before we got on because April and I are going to see a screening of The Dark Crystal, the awesome Henson Company movie from 1982. And then Peter said, well, did you ever see that Netflix animated kind of follow-on they did? And I'm like, I think I might have, but that would be something that we would probably talk about on our Patreon, or we might even talk about on our brand new Secret Friends Unite Oops All Thunderdome topic show. I actually recorded one last night with two guests about Tron Ares, and that's going to air this week after you're hearing this. But anyway, enough of a plug. Actually, I lied. It's not enough of a plug because I always jump on super quick and talk about our Patreon over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. You get programs like this one a day early. Sometimes you get shows several days early. Exclusive shows. We have an entire library over the last 2.5 years of great programming that we've been doing on things from movies to comics to TV shows to all kinds of great stuff. Exclusive channel on our Discord just for Patreons. We would love to have you on board. When you jump over to that link, your first week is always free. Your first month, half off right now, special limited time offer. And you can stay on board for as little as $2 per month. So we would love to have you there. Again, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. All right, let's get along to the main event. I had one story that precedes New York Comic Con, but I was so jazzed about it because, I'm excited about it, but I'm also kind of a little perturbed because when you get one of these, hey, an actor says, I'd like to do blank, I've just gotten to the point where I kind of ignore them. But when it's an actor who headed up a show and it happens at a fan event, like I believe this originated in at Star Trek Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah, we're talking about Scott Bakula and then Star Trek Enterprise writer and producer Mike Sussman are working on a pitch for a program that would portray Scott Bakula's character of Jonathan Archer as the president of the United Federation of Planets, right as they were getting things rolling. So Andrew Probert, who designed the most iconic ship and I wish I could reach and show you one, but I'm talking about the Connie 2 or the Constitution 2. I know I've got one.
I don't have one in arm's reach. I can't.
And I have, if and again, we don't generally do videos with these anymore, but the Enterprise that we saw throughout the TOS movies is called the Connie 2, or basically the Enterprise 1701 refit. Most beautiful space vehicle I feel like I've ever seen was designed by Andrew Probert. He went ahead and did an illustration of what the traveling vehicle might look like for Archer's character, President Archer, in the series, should it exist. And again, this is all highly speculative. And Peter, you're a very big fan of Enterprise.
Yeah.
How does talking this project kind of make you feel? What's your thought process?
I think it's really interesting because I think that exploring the beginning years of the Federation, especially with Archer as its first president, could be really, really interesting to see. Like, hey, we don't have a prime directive, but hey, remember all those times where we should have had a prime directive and I fucked it up really badly?
Yeah, right.
And that, so like Archer needing to be there to like help determine policy on that sort of thing. And like, I am unapologetically a fan of some of those intricate detail things. Like, I'm one of the guys that didn't mind the Senate scenes in the prequels, for instance. So, and I think if you kind of keep the in-universe politics of how do the Vulcans work with the Tellarites? How do you make that work? How do you make the Tellarites and the Vulcans work with the Andorians who hate everyone? Like all of that, and then seeing like how they create the first contact protocols and how they make all of that work, how they make like entry into the Federation. Like, you see an episode where they do it too soon, stuff like that.
Yeah,
that could be really, really interesting. And negotiations with like the Romulan War just finished up. How does that look?
Right.
So I think that it could be really, really interesting. It does have the danger of, when you're doing a show about in-universe politics, to have current day politics bleed into it. And I don't think that would be useful for this story.
Yeah. I understand.
Because there's other things in universe. There's real things going on that need to be dealt with. But I do think it could be really, really interesting. And if done right, could actually be very, very, it could be a hopeful and helpful look at how politics could be done. Right. Instead of what people do.
Yeah. I was certainly in this day and age would be a very healthy, and really, in a lot of ways, emboldening and envisioning, falling in line with what Star Trek is supposed to be, which is a hopeful look at the future, as opposed to maybe what we're living with right now. So
instead of like, oh, boo, it can be like, exactly. Hey, what if we did things a little bit better?
Right. And, there's always the danger, and I know you and I are not great fans of Discovery, and I am particularly not for this reason, is that when you have a prequel that takes such a hard left away from what in-universe is supposed to follow it, you're in trouble. Discovery was arguably more in the clear once they did the time jump into the future and they could chart a new course. And this is, much like Enterprise itself ahead of TOS, this is still far enough ahead of TOS that it's not necessarily going to mess around with that. But it doesn't necessarily have to. I mean, they don't have to change so much to the aesthetic. They can have the aesthetic of Enterprise, which could still fit, because those sets didn't look like what was too objectionable to recreate about TOS. But again, that's a road that we don't need to go down. So yeah, I'm following this with interest. I was talking to our friend Trekkie Bill from Trek Geeks just on chat yesterday, and he said, in reference to our next story, he says, what they're producing now, people don't want that. I said, people really want legacy. They want to see characters that they know and love move forward and have more stories. They want to see the next step. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And related back to this particular story that we're talking about, like the Andrew Probert designed the ship, and if you find the picture of it, it does look kind of like a ship that we have seen in the Enterprise show, one of the earlier ships. But they have tacked on TOS era nacelles on the back, which is kind of a neat touch. And the funny thing is, it does kind of look like he said the inspiration was kind of like an Air Force One. It does kind of look like an airplane. So if you've seen the Ronald D. Moore version of Battlestar Galactica with Colonial One, it kind of feels like Colonial One with some of the fins chopped off with Star Trek nacelles tacked on, which there's nothing wrong with it. That's not a knock. It's just that's what it reminds
not at all.
Of.
And I'm excited, speaking of Battlestar, that again, I would keep plugging the Patreon. If you tune back into the Patreon after a long break, Peter and I are getting back into talking about Ron Mars Battlestar Galactica. We're in the middle of the third season. No better time to tune back in, because my God, if there was ever a show that I loved more than Star Trek, it's Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica. But anyway, I was teasing a moment ago, obviously, about New York Comic-Con. And the big drop, Starfleet Academy is now coming to us on January 15th. We have a trailer and we have surprise casting, which I got to tell you, the surprise casting is the part of it that I'm the most excited about. But we got, a 2.5 minute trailer. And while I'm not so big into costuming anymore, I got to tell you that I'm going to need that Starfleet Academy hoodie, zip-up hoodie, and I'm going to need that Starfleet Academy varsity jacket. I'm just saying, I ran varsity cross country in high school. My ex-wife destroyed my jacket, so I need a new varsity jacket, and I'm going to go with this one.
I've got the old one that came off of Think Geek, so I have that one.
Yeah, but this is they pack this trailer with a lot of different things. You're getting a good portrayal of what I think are the most interesting characters, which are the adult characters. I'm sorry, I'm of the age demographic where I'm more interested in seeing what the grown-ups are doing. I get that they're trying to pitch this to a younger audience because much like with what is that little kids YouTube only series right now that's for preschoolers?
I don't remember.
We talked about it.
I saw that it happened, but
yeah, and I keep seeing headlines of it over on Trek
it's only
Movie,
got like
which
3
is,
or 4 episodes.
Yeah, which is for little kids, it's kind of like Jedi Adventures. That's supposed to be.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and so this is supposed to be for your CWWB, kind of, I was going to say UPN, which hasn't existed for decades, but it's for that teenage group. And I would imagine they want to portray this for those young people to get them into Star Trek, which I totally get, but they still want to give something for those of us who have been watching. So we're getting a touchstone character. We're getting Bob Picardo coming back as the Doctor, obviously looking the way he looks now, because they can't have the character and just de-age him in every appearance he has.
I mean, they could, but it would be expensive.
Right. It's not something that's going to happen on a TV budget. And I have to admit, we get a sprinkling of characters from Discovery. And one of my, admittedly, this may be a controversial opinion, but I've said several times, I was never fond of the character Tilly. She was said to be a part of this. It's now been said that she will appear in the pilot, and that's about it.
She does look good in the one clip that she was in.
She does. She was, yeah. And again, we don't need to get into I was kind of concerned about her in that regard, the actress, Mary Wiseman, not looking very healthy. And again,
she looks better. I think
that's what's important. But you see Tig Notaro, who's a stand-up comedian who I adore, who was Jet Reno. Was it Jet Reno, or did I combine a Star Wars name into that one? Reno was the last name.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
yeah,
right.
You're seeing her character, Odie Ferrer, is set to return as Admiral Vance, but a sprinkling and moving into to obviously talking about newer characters. The last thing I'll say before I kick it back to Peter to get his thoughts, we are getting a vocal character as the Academy's digital dean of students by one of my absolute favorite people in the whole wide world, Mr. Stephen Colbert, who came on and did an announcement as himself sitting at his Late Show with Stephen Colbert desk, appearing in the very first episode. And I love that he gave a reading of the line that he was going to say, mentioning a Talaxian fur fly. I don't know why it would come out of a replicator, but I appreciate the love to Nalex. That's good stuff. So overall, I'm totally of the opinion that I'm willing to jump in and give this a chance. But beyond that, I'm not making any commitments to whether loving it or not loving it. Peter, go ahead.
The trailer gives me mixed feelings.
Okay.
In part because it doesn't really give me a whole lot. Like, it gives me some idea of what's going on, and it kind of seems like I guess it's like a classic CW sort of thing where it's like, ooh, the villain hurt the main character when he was a baby, and now he's coming after him, and there might be revenge that's going to be at conflict with Starfleet's rules, but also the commandant of the facility is also his surrogate mom for some reason. So.
And she's very quippy.
Yeah, there's some tropes that I'm not super keen on. I mean, it could be just that's what this is, just how that kind of writing works now. I don't know. I've never been much for watching a lot of that kind of television anyway.
Sure.
But so it seems a little bit less. It feels like it doesn't quite have what Star Trek is it's baked into its genes in the same way, if that makes sense. Not to say like they won't do a good job. Like I hope they do a good job. They've got some stellar talent going on here.
Yeah.
But I just, the vibe that I got from the trailer is not, it's less Star Trek and more
Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Star Trekkin's Creek.
So I don't know exactly what to think of it.
Yeah.
Because like there's like, oh, we're gonna ramp up the teen angst and drama. Like, oh, I don't care for that. I've never cared for that, even when I was that age. It was just it's just not my thing.
I hear you.
But it could be interesting. There's some good performance stuff that we saw from Paul Giamatti. So like clearly his character is going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that he's the villain, but it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, and hopefully in a way that's not too tropey and corny. Just because of this. I thought that he was just going to be a villain, and now he's closely tied to one of the characters. Like, that's a little interesting.
Right.
So still don't like the ship as being the Academy. Yeah. But I've said that before.
It's a little out there.
That's odd.
You're right. It seems like they're trying to get around, the fact that this is, a space show, but they're not in space, so they've got to get themselves in space.
Yeah, it's kind of like, hey, let's do SEAL Team 6, but they're at Annapolis and can't leave.
Yeah,
but let's also do SEAL Team 6 by giving them a submarine for some reason. They're at Annapolis. They can't leave. But that's kind of what it feels like.
It was... people had the same complaint about DS9 when it started. Oh, it's not a ship going anywhere. They're on the station and on the planet and doing stuff.
There was lots of things that were interesting that happened on the station.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Who is to say that won't be the same case here? We don't know.
They could pull it off gloriously and amazingly. But
exactly correct.
I'm still sitting here going,
We will know in almost exactly 3 months from now. We've got it added to our schedule. We're going to start lining up a lot of our regular contributors to join us for the various episodes. We'll be hearing about it. All right, there's a few more things. We're going to go through them kind of quickly because this could end up being the longest episode ever if we dwell too much.
Yeah.
We got 4 minutes of what is, and it doesn't even explicitly say this, what is the season premiere of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 4. My finely honed senses tell me, when did we get this show this year? Did we get it in July or June?
For some reason, I can't remember now.
I feel like it's going to be mid-year because, again, we'll have Academy January through March. And so let's say, hypothetically speaking, maybe this is a July-August kind of reveal.
I think so.
I'm feeling like it's going to be maybe August of next year. Because obviously, it's in the can. They're filming.
July 17th was when.
There you go. So let's say, let's say for argument's sake, it'll be roughly the same time. I have two thoughts very quickly about this. Number one, it's setting up a very Star Trek-ish kind of adventure.
Yep.
We got a planet, we got to solve a thing, this and that. Number two, it's not a great hook. It's not like I saw this for the first time and like, what is this all about? It's not groundbreaking. And they didn't show us, even when they showed us last year at San Diego Comic-Con, the 4 minutes of them all turn into Vulcans. At least that was like, oh my God, that's really different and weird. And while that episode didn't end up being something that we enjoyed, it really stood out. This feels very generic. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
It does feel kind of like a mid-season 3 kind of TNG or Voyager episode where it's like, hey, look, we have an anomaly and it's doing weird things. And then it does something weird to the ship.
Right.
I kind of got a Galaxy Quest vibe out of this. And that's probably just where I was thinking, because it's like, oh, we're gonna fly into nothing could go wrong, everything goes wrong. Oh, look, everything's broken. We might have a shuttle that works. We need to land on a planet. Oh, poo. Because we need fuel. Even though I once again am like, iridium's not the fuel source, it's deuterium.
Right.
But whatever.
Iridium reminds me of Modium, so it's like somebody have an upset tummy.
Yeah, iridium is also one of those things that you find in Mass Effect all the time.
Oh, there you go. Well,
hey, let's not keep digging that mine, guys.
Yeah, right.
But
blow up.
But it's like, it could be interesting because we've got another away team doing something. The ship's in danger. It's a classic thing that Star Trek has done a bunch of times. Strange New Worlds has done it a bunch already. So we'll see how they take a new twist on this.
Yeah.
But it does feel a little bit more, and this is probably why they did it. It feels a little bit more of a return to classic Star Trek form and
Right.
less of the gimmicks. Because
Yeah.
a lot of us were, at least for season 3, there were a lot of gimmick episodes. It's like,
Yeah.
it's fine in itself as an idea, but the problem is when most of your season is gimmicks, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, there were a lot of people, and even people that we had on this program to talk about the season with us, that were really put off by a lot of the very gimmicky and just kind of not really moving things forward with characters. So we will know. And again, my finely honed sense of guessing tells me next summer is when we're going to end up seeing this. So, all right, Peter, the figures from the Nacelle Company. We had Brian Volkweiss on the show earlier this year on our Spotlight segment, which you can find on our website. You can also find it on our Patreon if you're a Patreon, if you end up missing it. Super nice guy. We're in talks to have him back to actually talk about The Center Seat, the great documentary that he made about Star Trek that his company produced, to have him come back as a guest, because we're going to be talking a little bit about that as we get further on down the road. But their first wave of figures is set to drop. They put it out for pre-order earlier this year. I didn't grab it from their website because it was a pre-order that you paid for at time of, and it's expensive to buy a wave of figures. So I kind of put it off. I hate to say it. Sorry. I did finally pre-order all of them from Amazon because it's faster shipping and it's a little bit less expensive. So I did that. But the pre-order is now up for Wave 2. And Waves 3 and 4 were previously announced at San Diego Comic-Con a few months ago. So a lot of these sites are out there saying, oh my God, look at this. I'm like, all of this is known.
We already know pretty much all of this.
They gave us some nice pictures from Wave 4. They're going to have Picard from
Little Ship's
First
Picard.
Contact. But the thing about this is it sets it apart. And again, the price point is a couple bucks more, but they come with these incredible accessories. So the Picard figure is coming with the section of the conference room of the Enterprise where he smashes the rifle into it and the little ships go flying. That first wave, again, it's very inside baseball characters, which is great for people like us. But by the time he finally gets to, and Wave 2 is also very inside baseball in a lot of ways. You have your first ever character from the animated series with Bem. Your first ever really standalone Nog figure, which is great. Carol
Marcus, I think this is the first time Carol Marcus has had a figure.
Correct. This is the first Janeway figure that's ever been done in 6-inch scale. It's her from Year of Hell. But by the time they finally get to Wave 3, and again, this is something Brian mentioned, they are kind of bowing to the pressure of doing mainline characters. So you're going to get an entire wave that will cover all of the TOS characters as they appeared there.
And every TOS character, not just the main ones. Like we're getting Rand and Chapel.
And those are the ones from that wave that I will pick up. And I will pick up a lot of Wave 2, but I'll probably skip, like they have Geordi and Worf in their holodeck outfits from Worf's promotion ceremony and Generations. That doesn't really throw me.
They're fun, but it would only matter if like they plan on making the rest of them. At least to me.
Which maybe they could. And again, my figures are off to my left here. I have a ton of them. I've gotten so much more selective, and I already have a Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, and I'm looking right at them. I have Kirk, Spock, and McCoy and Uhura in TOS. So I'm set there. I have Star Trek 2 versions of the other characters. So I'm kind of on the fence if I want TOS version so that I have a complete set. I probably will do that.
Yeah.
But I do need a Rand who has never been made in 6-inch, or Chapel who's never been made in 6-inch.
I don't think either of them have,
But the success of this line is that people buy it. So if you like what we're talking about, please go to Amazon, Entertainment Earth, Big Bad Toy Store, or certainly the Nacelle Company themselves, and order these. If you order a wave, if you order a few, that's how they're going to be able to make more. But again, it's nacellestore.com. I'm going to give a plug for Brian because Brian's a super cool guy. I want to help him be successful. I'm very excited about these. Peter, are you planning to pick any of these up at a certain point?
I want to, but my wallet will fight me. Right. So we'll see.
The good news is Wave 1 is available for pre-order on Amazon individually. So if you're like, all right, well, I'm going to get 2, you can go pre-order.
Because I was looking at Garrett, Jellicoe, and maybe one other.
Well, there you go.
Because those are the ones that I've never seen before, so those are kind of
right. Yeah, and again with that first wave, you've got just to review it. Super. Oh God, I don't have. Oh no, I did have it in front of me. Wave 1 is you have Valeris, who was seen very briefly in Star Trek 3, my favorite.
But that's Valkyries.
Mirror Archer. What did I say? Valkyries. Thank you. Yeah, because Valeris is in the later wave. Valkyris,
She's there too.
Mirror Archer, Wayoon, first time he's in 6 inch. Jellicoe, first figure I think ever. Tuvix, first figure ever. Peter Preston from Star Trek II, Scotty's nephew, same. Garrett, as you just mentioned, Captain of the Enterprise C, and then Captain Sulu with his little teacup.
Which is kind of a fun little accessory.
Yeah, that's a full sweep for me because none of those
are all
were,
really cool. I just don't know if I can. I also don't know if I have anywhere to put all of them. So.
I know. I mean, I did. And it was funny. I was showing Brian pictures as I would send him a picture. I said, I just cleared a whole shelf for your figures. And I redistributed things because I know I'm going to be picking them up. So yes, please again, visit nacelstore.com, Amazon, Big Bad Toy Store, or Entertainment Earth. They are available for pre-order now. Please support these products because I'm super psyched for them. All right, let's wrap this up somewhat succinctly with one last little blurb. Peter, you've done some Eagle Moss because you bought some off of me.
Yeah.
Some of the smaller ships. Yep. Have you gotten anything from Fan Home since they took over the license?
I have not.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a storage problem.
Yeah, and they are a bit more expensive. A lot of that has to do with cost of materials, tariffs, etc. I know even my cost has gone up by probably $5 a figure, but even just for inflation. What I'm going to talk about here, which is their larger ships, which they call the XL line, was not continued from when they picked up Eagle Moss. Now they're stepping back in, and while some of the newer ships produced in the subscription line, of which I have a subscription, are the more modern ships from Picard and Lower Decks and etc. They are now going back to start reproducing 10 different ships from the classic line, the more iconic ships. So you've got your Enterprises, Katinga class Klingon battlecruiser, DS9, so on and so forth. These were $75 back in the day. Now they're $90. It's a difference of $15. That's a bummer, but inflation is inflation. I know that back in the old days when Peter and I were still part of a chapter of the International Star Trek Fan Club, which April and I started, it was called the Grand Petoskey, and it was the souped up version of the Enterprise E that you saw in All Good Things. And I created a little lineage for them. And I have XL versions of each of the ships, except the Enterprise of the lineage, except the Enterprise D and sadly the Connie 2, my favorite. Now that they're being produced here, I will probably at least pick them up so all of my things match. That's as much as I can say.
Yeah.
But again, reaching out to people who have never collected these, they're well worth it. They're nice. They're a mix
nice
of
chips,
they're a mix of plastic and die cast. I have the Cerritos already. That was one of the last ones I was able to get before Eagle Moss went poof. So that's in my case upstairs. But I've got the lineage of the Petoskey, which was our chapter, which I started with an NX refit from season, which got made canon, by the way, the season 5 refit with the lower hull. And then I had basically your Strange New Worlds Enterprise, which became a Connie 2, and the ship after that was the Ambassador. And then I had the Enterprise D, the Galaxy, which turns into the Galaxy X with the 3 nacelles.
Yep.
So yeah, I highly recommend that. And so Fan Home does sell their ships individually. He said, all the ships will be available for purchase October 15th, which will be the week that this is coming out. Mm-hmm. And they did have some for sale over at their booth as well. So, but yeah, no, it's got, they've got some definite misses in here. I don't need the Enterprise from the JJ movies. I don't need every one of them, but yeah, it's a huge list of 20 ships. My goodness. Yep. First it said 10, then it said 10 Enterprises, and then for a total of 20. Which is incredible. So yeah, this is a great chance to jump on board. But again, at $90 a ship, if you're buying every one of them, that's a whole lot of bucks. That's a whole lot of bucks. But yeah, pick and choose. And again, we'll have links in the show notes for you to talk about that, or for you to check that out. So, all right, there's plenty more news all over the place for that kind of stuff, but this is as much news talking as we typically do. Yes. So now we're gonna move on. We're dipping a toe back in the water, getting into the random episodes. Of which is a game that we play when we don't have new episodes. Us and other people, kind of in our fan base, help us select an episode at random out of the nearly 1,000 segments of Star Trek. And then we talk about that episode a little bit more in depth. But for this one, because we're in the month of October, we're recording this in October of 2025, I said, let's just do the Halloween special that was done in 1967.
Yep.
kicking off season 2 of the original series called Catspaw, which was actually, I think, the 6th or 7th episode to air, or maybe 4th or 5th. You'd have to look at the calendar, because the powers that be wanted to air it when Halloween was happening, and the season itself started in September. I think A Mock Time was the first episode that aired, because when I went to go look for it on my little digital library on Fandango at home, A Mock Time was up first, and this was like selection 5, 6, or 7. But just it aired Halloween week in 1967. The quickie summary, and we're going to have a good time talking about this. 2 powerful aliens threaten the well-being of the Enterprise and her crew with their magical powers. Scotty, Sulu, and Jackson from the landing party go missing on a planet known to be uninhabited. Upon returning, Jackson dies, giving Kirk a warning to leave the system, which Kirk promptly ignores, and he and Scotty and Bones beam down to find a mysterious castle. All right, let's get into it. And again, I watched this again this morning. April and I both did. There were several kind of chuckle moments.
There's a couple groaners too.
There's a whole lot of groaners. Peter, get us rolling, and I'll punctuate.
Okay, so first off, you think it's a normal episode. You're like, oh, it's a beam down, whatever, and then it's like, oh, we can't contact people, so they beam up the one guy, and he's just kind of stiff, and then falls over in classic style. And then tip him over, a different voice comes out of his mouth. Ooh, you need to leave or you're going to die. Which of course Kirk is like, you still have my people on the planet. Screw you.
I'm like that. Yeah, exactly. That's bullshit. You should have beamed up the other ones then.
Yeah, you should have sent my other people. Otherwise, I'm coming down. If you don't want Kirk to come after you, send all of his people home. Otherwise, you will get a Kirk boot up your butt.
You know what? I was just inspired by this. I've been in sales my entire career. If I call on somebody and they don't flat out say, don't contact me, I will probably from time to time reach out to them and say hello until they actually say piss off. So yes, be direct. This guy should have been direct, and he should have said, here's all your people, go away. Yeah, our transaction is completed. Yep. But he didn't do that.
But he kept the people, so that was his problem. He made it dumb. So then of course Kirk is like, I'm going down and finding my people, and takes Spock and McCoy with him. Bring all of your chief officers down to go missing.
Always bring the most important. It's always the same people that if they all died, who would be in charge? Yeah. Which kind of pissed me off, because they toss in DeSalle, he's
like
either
the last time he appears.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it does say that in the notes I had, but he's either a character that we've seen.
We've seen him a couple times
previously, or we saw him we saw the actor in a different role, but he is a lieutenant, and I wrote the assistant chief
engineer.
Yeah, he's the assistant chief engineer, who I said, it sounds like assistant to the traveling secretary, that's from Seinfeld, or the assistant to the regional manager, which is from The Office.
Yeah.
But I'm like, he's the same department and rank as Uhura. Why the hell isn't she in charge? I think that was kind of a missed opportunity, but whatever. One of the obviously much more important things about what's going on the bridge is that we have the first appearance of Walter Koenig as Pavel Chekhov, wearing the most beautiful Beatles wig that you ever did see.
It's so God. Bad.
And this was airing at the same time.
Like Edna Mode almost.
Yeah. Peter, I don't know if you're at all familiar with the prefab for the Monkees, who were
I am
a television
vaguely
program.
Aware of the Monkees.
The
I have
Monkees,
heard their music. I don't necessarily know what they look like.
The Monkees, this show, Star Trek: The Original Series, and Batman '66 all came out in 1966 at various phases. So I kind of wrap my arm around all 3 shows, and it's kind of funny how much they touch each other, because like the film stock and some of the sets bear a resemblance, and there's a lot of shared actors.
Yeah.
So it's, the Monkees was a fictional LA band that it was 4 dudes. So he's kind of like, well, this is, the Beatles for America. And ironically, the real Beatles and the Monkees were contemporaries. They were friendly. So they were friends. Which I find absolutely fascinating. But anyway, yes, it was good to grab Chekhov. Canonically speaking, he was somehow on the ship in the first season because he met Khan, because Khan makes reference to the fact that he's seen his face before.
Yep.
But yes, there are many non-canonical surroundings around that. Walter Koenig apparently likes to tell the story. Well, I think Khan was waiting to use the bathroom and Chekhov was in front of him, and that's why he remembered.
Yes.
The bathrooms worked. But anyway, all right. So they're down on the planet. What's happening when they get down? They're wandering around, and then you get into my first favorite set piece.
Oh, yeah, you get like the classic TOS fake rock wall,
Yeah.
which I think gets reused in TNG. It looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
But you then get these like 3 supposed to be ghostly characters whose makeup is like really weird.
Yeah, the Stygian witches kind of.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, kind of the kind of sing-songy, scary, woobly voices.
Yeah.
I mean,
very, very bad poetry, Captain.
Yeah, that's Spock's.
How about something helpful,
one
Spock?
contribution.
I love that they can be so bitchy with the two of them, but like friends can be like that.
I mean,
yeah.
I do that with my friends all the time. It's like something dumb will happen. You'll just look at it and like make the most stupid observation just to see what happens.
Please say something stupid.
Yeah. And that was Spock going like, if this was Spock after his resurrection in 4, this would be
right.
Is now time for a completely obvious observation, Captain.
Like colorful metaphor, another colorful. I think it's time for another colorful metaphor.
Yeah, that's kind of what this felt like. This was something where Kirk was like, "Hey, we should do this to have more fun," and Spock's like, "This is a perfect moment to exercise that," and it's like, not now, Spock.
I'm sorry, Doctor. Were we having fun? I liked him better before he died. I did notice, so they keep going. I did notice that and again, I've not seen the original cut of this episode in a lot of years, but they did take the outside view of the castle and in the 06.
The original is kind of a goofy matte painting, I think.
Which it's funny because they give it that beautiful facade, but in the dialogue continues and they flash back to our characters and then back to the setting. They use the same shot twice to show more of an inset of the door where they're going, which doesn't match the first painting. So I'm like, all right, well
they did have that door at the bottom of the CGI recreation. So it was there. Yeah. But it still doesn't
but
quite.
You zoom in and the quality of the film stock doesn't match, but what are you going to do?
Match the film grain a little bit, guys.
I love that the black cat, which as we find out later on is one of our 2 antagonists, just meowing and following around, and Shatner just looks straight up annoyed. He's like,
who knows? Maybe awesome. Kirk doesn't like cats.
You never really see him on the show.
There's a dog person.
There's no cats running around on the Enterprise, that's for sure. Kirk makes the very on the nose. I'd say, if it wasn't, he brings up for a while that one of my people got killed, and then it kind of trails off. But he's like, well, if the situation wasn't so dire, I'd say someone was playing an elaborate trick or treat on us, and they have to try to explain it to Spock because he doesn't really get it. But Bones is, as usual, doing it as a condescending manner as humanly possible.
Classic, yeah.
They pull my absolute favorite with TOS. In this castle, they have torches on the wall, which are burning. They're blazing, but they are putting off no light, and everything else is completely perfectly lit. So it's kind of the exact opposite of any set dressing in a modern TV show where everything is way too friggin' dark. Everything is way too free. There's no way
the
that
contrast is way too much.
It's way too high.
No contrast.
We're back and forth to the ship. You're seeing DeSalle, and he's talking to Chekhov, and he's like, well, he's like, well, when our people went into the castle, their readings disappeared. And DeSalle's like, well, I don't know if I really believe that. Could you double check your this and that? We can recalibrate. Do you need some help? And Chekhov gives this very like hangdog. He's like, I can do it, sir. I'm not that green. He's like, he seemed like a punky teenager. Like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Like he's like dad's giving you a call. We'll put gas in the car. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All he missed was the rolling eyes and the sagging of the shoulders.
Exactly. Now, there's a very famous, this might get mentioned in my notes later, there's a very famous gaffe with Jimmy Doohan, who both he and Scotty have been hypnotized. They're working for the bad guys. Scotty is holding a phaser that he's pointing at our people because our guys end up chained, and then they unchain them. They're going to walk them to meet the villains. Scotty's holding this phaser in his right hand. Well, Jimmy Doohan, very famously, as a soldier in the Canadian military on D-Day when he was stationed thereafter, ended up getting shot at and lost a finger. So you see that, and where you would expect the 3 fingers, would be holding onto the phaser, one of them is missing. So it seems kind of interesting that they didn't just make the character left-handed, because all he's doing is holding it. And they would have run into that issue. But anyway, it's a pretty famous bit about Scotty, and then it's a pretty famous point out about him. So I wrote the dialect coach for the black cat was worth every penny, because that cat is just going to town talking.
Yep.
Pretty impressive stuff. But and there's a costume note later about, but the bald gaze, there's a male and a female character, which, by the way, I very much likened
Sylvia, I think.
Korob. I very much likened them to Riff Raff and Magenta from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, because they're exactly the same. They're posing as humanoid characters, and they're aliens. But yeah, he's bald, and he's got this like big protrusion of like a goatee with no mustache. He looks like, and you'll see his outfit matches where he got it from, which we'll talk about in the notes. Maynard G. Krebs. We got they're now that Kirk's talking about trick or treat, and he's trying to explain it to Korob, and I love this line. Well, I don't understand your reference, referring to trick or treat. Therefore, it is also unimportant. Like, this guy's just a schmuck. You know what I mean? He's just taking every opportunity to be super.
We know nothing about you and have no way to judge whether or not any of this makes sense, and so it just doesn't matter. Okay.
Right. There you go. He tries to bribe them with food. Not interested. Hopefully they had some vegetarian options for Spock. Then he tries to bribe them with gems, and I'm like, you can't eat those. This guy thinks he can buy them off.
Yeah,
and they're
hilariously, Kirk's like, we can replicate these all the time.
We don't use money. And McCoy picks them and says, wow, these are real. I'm like, they're really nothing, man. They don't look like anything at all. So yeah, we find out that, the cat runs out of the room and a woman walks back in. Well, it doesn't take too long to figure out that the woman is the other character. She explains that Jackson died because she used magic to project him in her mind, and then she projected him being dead, and he just dead. And Kirk says, you can't think a man to death. And I'm like, well, Kirk can talk a computer to death. Is it the same logic? I don't know. Did you notice Kirk's weird pronunciation of the word telekinesis is telekinesis?
Yeah.
Telekinesis, yeah.
Yeah, there's some weird pronunciation of some early sci-fi terms are in TOS, and I mean films from that time, and it still happens in like modern TV where someone will pronounce a word and you're like, that is not how you say that. Exactly.
McCoy gets what they called in Marvel Comics the no prize for saying the name of the episode in the dialogue, so he does say Catspaw. The famous Enterprise and the little block of lucite or whatever, that's a prop that I think that ended up in the Smithsonian.
It did, it's a really neat little model, though. I mean, with the cleaned up footage, it's like they actually took some time to make that look really nice.
Yeah. Which is not bad on a weekly budget. Because of that, the Enterprise is trapped in a force field. DeSalle is figuring out a way they can get out. And he uses, can talk about weird lines. He says, I'll bet your credits to Navy beans we can dent it with the force field. I'm like, there's neither credits and what the hell are Navy beans? I'm sure that's a thing.
But I mean, credits do exist because Cyrano Jones talks about them.
So
those are around, but
it just seems
Navy
like
beans is some inside baseball thing with the Navy at that time that I am just not aware of. I'm sure somebody knows.
I mean, the expression dollars to donuts, I guess I get.
It's the same idea. It's just Navy beans is, it's a reference that has gone over my head. But however, even though I do not understand the reference, it is not unimportant. It's just unknown to me.
Yeah. Shatner then figures out that he can do once he and Sylvia are alone, he can do his classic, well, I'm going to seduce her. And my God, does it work, but not before she goes through this, and April was like, what? She goes through this segment where she changes her appearance, and April's like, wasn't it a different person? I'm like, no, it was the same woman. They just put her in different outfits and gave her a different wig. Or I thought it wasn't a different person. It was the same person.
I believe it was the same person. Yeah.
Okay.
I had the same thought, but then I was like going back. I'm pretty sure it's the same actress the whole time.
And yes, I wrote, this was my lineup for the name of the episode. I said her last outfit was like this weird, like romper gown. And I'm like, that is just not good. That's not going to get the job done.
Yeah.
So he seduces her. She falls for it, but it doesn't take her too long to figure out that he's shining her on. And I wrote,
she's trying to seduce him too. It's very weird.
And I wrote, she gets pissy then, and I said, I guess she's kind of human after all.
Yeah.
Because, she's more human than she knows. Love Spock's line, the cat is the most ruthless, most terrifying of animals. And I said, that's true in this house if I don't get up right at 5:15 in the morning, give my cats their treats. I got one that the front carpet in front of our bedroom door is completely destroyed because of one of my cats. Yeah, they're vicious.
Yep.
Yeah, so Sylvia's pissed, turns into the cat. It's giant sized. Karath switches sides. He's going to help them out, so they're all on the run together. He gets crushed by the door that the cat pushes in because they lock themselves in a room. Like, things are just getting ridiculous now.
Yeah.
So he gets crushed. Kirk has an epiphany that the scepter has some kind of meaning, so he grabs it. I love it how they're in the dark dungeon, but there's a hole in the ceiling, which we saw earlier.
Yeah, that they fell through earlier in the episode.
Yeah, that they fell through, exactly. And up there, again, it's perfectly lit. Even though the torches are burning on the wall, all the light is coming from directly above them.
Yep.
So, yeah, Kirk and Spock jump out that way. But, of course, by this point, McCoy is also a zombie. He and Scotty and Sulu have punch-ups with Kirk and Spock. And Sulu comes out and does like this weird, he's getting into karate stances. And, like, it's weird.
Strange.
I did notice that when Kirk knocks him out, he looks like Sulu's on the ground. He looks like he broke his neck because he's like up against the door, and I'm like, ugh. So in the final analysis, Kirk figures out that, hey, if I smash the head of the scepter, that should defeat them. And it really does, because in a flash, everything is gone.
Yeah, and there's an explosion, everything's gone.
You get these two little marionette aliens, and it was funny. April and I just finished rewatching the first season of Peacemaker, which is a DC comic show that I love over on HBO Max. And the alien or the enemies in that first season were these bugs that, would burrow into a human brain and take over the human body. So it's a very version of the Body Snatchers. And that's it was kind of what these things look like. They look like big insects, but I feel like you could see the strings moving them. They
cleaned them up in the remastered one, but it was definitely they definitely looked, you could see the fishing line in the original.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they beam up and then the credits roll. So it's like, where was the edit to that ending? There wasn't like, well, we learned a lot today, so bye. It was just they rolled off and then you see ship fly off. And
yeah, Kirk had like this little kind of reflection about how like they were, powerful, but kind of, arrogant and stupid. And then they just left.
Gotta go.
So
for me, how serious was a Halloween special going to be, right? Like,
not very.
There wasn't a lot to really expect from this, but everything is played super straight. And I feel like, especially considering like Lower Decks, which you've had in more recent parlance, I feel like a little whimsy would have benefited from it. And it's also kind of weird. It's the first episode of the season, but it feels like it's the last episode of the season because they're like, oh my God, we're out of money.
It's listed as episode 7 of season 2.
But this was production wise, I believe it was episode number 1. So it's like the cameras were rolling on this because, it was at least the first episode with Chekhov. So I feel like maybe we'd have to double check. And I know we have some notes we're going to go back to in a minute, but regardless, it feels like we're at the end of the season now. We're out of money. We got to make things pretty cheap because everything in this seems super cheap and crappy. I mean, even by TOS, like the sets are like, we went to the castle set on the Universal backlot and we used it. And then we got some footage of some black cats. And then we stole this from the Wizard of Oz. And you know what I mean? So, I mean, even for a silly episode, this was bad for me. I gave this a 6 out of 10. I don't know about you. Where do you land?
Probably somewhere in the same ballpark. It's not my favorite. It kind of is like, there's some of it that's kind of interesting or kind of funny, but overall it's like,
Yeah, precisely.
It's like, if you're going to do something Halloween-ish, you kind of have to either lean more into the scary bits, which they didn't really do.
Right.
I mean, the cat was supposed to be a little scarier, but they didn't, because of the technology at the time. There's only so much they could do. So you either have to lean into the horror or you have to just like lean into the whimsy, sort of like Hotel Transylvania it up, and they didn't.
Right.
So
I mean, like I said, it felt especially cheap. Even, and I didn't mention when Kirk and Spock and McCoy, and then later just Kirk and Spock were chained up. They were next to what was tantamount to your high school science class skeleton, which was all
Yeah.
it looked like a Halloween skeleton that's like the one that's on my neighbor's yard.
Yeah,
You
the
know what I mean?
Halloween
Just
party store skeleton. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Halloween USA. All right, some fun facts. Some of this stuff we've already mentioned. Walter Koenig as Chekhov makes his debut. Mentions that he knew that Khan said he knew them, but he wore this big wig, which he got rid of when his own hair was kind of long enough. So I don't know, maybe he had a shaved head when he started this or something. This does note this was the first episode in production from May of '67, but didn't come out for the week of Halloween, obviously, to tie in. And this is the only Star Trek production that has had a holiday themed kind of special. So there is no, Christmas special. There's nothing, kind of religious theme, because Star Trek until DS9 really stays away from things related. So there's not a Christmas, there's not a Thanksgiving.
Christmas is in Generations. There's things that are in there, but it's not like this is kind of the theme of the episode.
Right. My favorite bit in these notes is that Korath's robe was worn by Gilligan in an episode of Gilligan's Island. Bob Denver, who was Gilligan, also played, I can't remember the show, but he played a beatnik character in something prior to that called Maynard G. Krebs. And so the beatnikish-like appearance of Korath, I thought was very fitting to that.
Funny.
So I didn't catch this costume anomaly. The short scene of crewmen in turtleneck uniforms walking down the uniform during the red alert is stock footage from Where No Man Has Gone Before, which the uniforms from that were pretty much erased. So it's the dangers of stock footage, I guess.
Yep.
So
I mean, that shot got used a lot. Like, I remember the only episode that we had on VHS growing up was Trouble with Tribbles, and there is a shot from Where No Man Has Gone Before in Trouble with Tribbles with those uniforms.
Well, I guess that's how you can explain all the costume changes in Discovery and Strange New Worlds, a little variation. So you had mentioned this was the third and final appearance of actor Michael Barrier as the Sal. He was assistant chief engineer in this because they needed someone in charge of engineering while Scotty was in command of the bridge, but it was backwards. And like I said, missed opportunity to really, kick the dial up to 11, because I think Uhura should have been in command. But first episode to feature all 7 cast members, even though a lot of them didn't appear together, that would move to the movies. Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, Uhura, Sulu, and Chekhov. Now, do keep in mind for Star Trek: The Motion Picture, both Rand and Chapel appeared.
Yep.
But they were both nudged out for future films. So then it truly became the 7 at that point, because those were the 7 that moved forward.
You
through
did
the other films.
see them throughout the films, but they weren't like in them all the time.
You got Rand back in 3.
Chapel
a non-speaking cameo.
Chapel was in 4 as a non-speaking cameo, and I think
so
Rand was there too.
Chapel actually had a line because they were in that room, the big emergency room, and she was speaking to somebody.
Oh, right, she's in Starfleet Command, yeah.
Yeah, but Rand and Rand as well. But Rand is funny. She was enlisted there because she's wearing a jumper. But then when we see her again in Star Trek VI, she's a lieutenant commander and the first officer of the Excelsior. So a lot of weird stuff happens. But anyway, now we're off the mark. But yeah, one of the silliest episodes of TOS, I would probably say,
but not the worst,
without fail. Not the worst. We have not ventured into. We've talked about Spock's brain in the past. Who knows? We'll end up talking about it again in some context in the future. So just to buckle up. But all right, well, that ends Halloween, and that ends talking about this not random episode. Now we jump back into talking about Star Trek Voyager.
Indeed.
In the year 2000. So this is the second part of talking about season 7, which is, of course, our very last legacy season. Before moving on to other things. So episode 8 is yours, my friend.
All right. Episode 8 is Nightingale, directed by LeVar Burton, story by Robert Lederman and Dave Long, teleplay by Andre Bormanis. Aired November 22nd of 2000. Harry Kim takes command of an alien ship that has lost its officers in an attack on an allegedly mission of mercy.
Right. And it lasts for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So, I would say, and again, we've had Andre Borealis as an interview. And actually, by the time we'd be listening to this, it hasn't come out yet. But we had a great time talking to him earlier this summer. And yeah, he was a big part of the Voyager and then also of Enterprise as well. I think this was a concerted effort to give Harry Kim something interesting to do, because both
Yep.
he and Tom Paris, I think they spent a lot, in particular the last 2 seasons, really trying to make it just not be the Seven and the Doctor show, or
Yeah.
and Janeway, of course, to try to give other characters things to do. I mean, what do you think? Did they pull it off? Did you find this at all interesting?
I mean, this one was kind of there was a little bit of tongue in cheek with Harry Kim never being promoted and never being in command much.
Yeah, they touched it and danced away.
Yeah,
It was funny because he brought it up. He's having the scene with Janeway, and then he backs down. Which, I mean, again, he's an ensign, so it's like,
Yeah, he can't do a whole lot, but he does bring up.
Yeah, right.
It was like, hey, you've been in command of the ship. He's like on the night shift where we don't do anything. So it's fair. So there's kind of a bit where you see how he has to learn to, you can't do everything yourself when you're the captain. You have to delegate and you have to do all of this. So
Right.
It was a fascinating exploration about command style. I don't know if it was the best I've ever seen, but it was a really interesting look at how Harry Kim has to do it. And hilariously, 7 of 9 is giving him pointers. It's like, 7, you've never been in command. You've just been a Borg.
Right.
But, she has a database and she knows things. So that was kind of interesting.
I'm read up.
Right. He thought that he had the right story. He did not on what was going on. For fans of other science fiction, the leader of the ship, is Nightingale, is the guy who plays Book in Firefly, amongst some other things.
Of people who actually saw Firefly,
yes,
which obviously wasn't very many.
Yeah,
on for longer. Yeah.
But the amazing show that was, you
right.
have Book on here, which is kind of a fun little bit, and he's playing kind of a bad guy in this one. So it's like, hey, we're a hospital ship. Turns out they're carrying a bioweapon. Great. So
had to do something to make it interesting.
Yeah, but they do have a cloak, so that's kind of nice.
Yeah. And the ship was a real thin reuse of the Federation attack ship from DS9 and TNG. Which just goes to show back in those days, they were physical models, and they had to, we'll slap a couple of extra bits on that one.
I mean, when I saw the physical models, you saw like, hey, this is the Excelsior model. It's like, it doesn't have the name Excelsior on it anymore. They just repainted.
And this was barely a kit bash, but my favorite this was barely a kit bash. My favorite ever kit bash is they took the same body of the ship we're talking about and they slapped the Voyager's primary hull on top of it and gave it pylons, and it was the Jaeger class. I love the Jaeger class. What a weird nightmare Frankenstein looking horrible thing, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But it was frequent. You could frequently see it orbiting DS9. There was one of them that was
such a weird ship.
I know. It's weird, absolutely weird.
The role-playing game I'm in, he does other games, and there's one where one of the guys who was in the game created a really, really shitty opening title with the Jaeger class. I'll have to see if I can find it. It's really funny. It's so corny. And then at the end, right before you're supposed to have the warp out, the ship hits the camera, falls over, then the cells popped out, and the studio catches on fire. It's amazing.
Oh my God, good stuff. All right, let's move along. The next one was originally aired as a TV movie on November 29th of 2000, but it's known as episodes 9 and 10 in syndication. This would be Flesh and Blood, part 1 being directed by Mike Vihar, part 2, David Livingston. So it was filmed separately, but they did kind of jam it together. Story by part 1, Jack Monaco, Brian Fuller, and Rafe Green. Teleplay by Brian Fuller. Part 2 is Fuller and Rafe Green doing the story, and teleplay by Green and Ken Biller. So you got a lot of creative people putting together the story. But Voyager's hologram technology, which I love, which Janeway previously donated to the Hirogen. That's not really how that happened. If you remember the Killing Game from back in season 4, it was a negotiation tactic so that they could end a war between the two of them.
Gave as a concession so that they would leave them the heck alone.
Exactly. Which is, and it's also and I'll get into this, but it's also kind of weird that we're now 3 seasons and tens of thousands of light years further away, but the Hirogen pop up again. But anyway, this technology had been subsequently modified to make their holographic prey more cunning, and meaning the holographic characters led an insurrection and killed all of their new masters. And now this race of holograms is wanting self-determination and don't kind of don't care who they have to kill to get it.
Mhm.
So again, this was a sweeps month because it was November, back when sweeps was the thing. This was a sweeps thing that they had a big 2-parter that was very grand in scope, but it was basically you had a mixture of holograms that what the costume people did was just clean out whatever it was not being used from DS9's past. Cardassian outfits, Bajoran outfits, our main
Romulans,
character.
Klingons.
Our main character wore a Bajoran officer's uniform, and now I've already forgotten his name. But this was an episode that was kind of built around the Doctor because they appeal to his vanity, and he wants to go with them. And eventually, he's with them for a time, but figures out that this Bajoran hologram dude is a total nutcase, and he's homicidal, and he, in the end of it. To examine, to save the day, he turns against them, and obviously our people are ultimately victorious. But I thought it was just kind of weird, but in a lot of ways kind of necessary. You want to bring back, the last one of the great 2-parters from season 4 was the Killing Game, which you mentioned, which was focused around the Hirogen had captured Voyager. That happened before the episode started, and then they turned all of the holodecks into hunting simulations throughout human history, the biggest of which was a World War II set piece, which I thought was absolutely great.
Yeah.
That cast all of our characters, but all of our people had inhibitors, so that they thought they were the characters they were playing, but there were no holodeck safeties. That I thought was great. This one maybe was an effort to recapture some of the glory of that. With the hologram bit, and then to work through Bob Picardo, continuing to explore the Doctor's character and holographic rights and self-determination. And this was the flip side of someone who kind of does, kind of walks the walk, but beaten and tortured and turning on their captors. I'm just not sure how I feel about that, because again, I think about the holographic stuff, and I think about that season 4 episode and how much I really enjoyed that one. And this just, I don't know if it exactly falls flat. I don't exactly know that you would describe that. I don't know. What did you think of this one?
It's kind of interesting. It's not my favorite. And it's definitely trying to do it. I would agree with you. Like it's just I think at this point for me in the season is that the holograms are oppressed trope is just a little tired.
And it's not over yet.
It's not over yet, because we get more.
There's still a few more coming up, yeah.
Because it feels like the Doctor learns a little bit about it, and then it kind of reverts, and then learns a little bit, and then flip-flops. And so it's just a little bit too... he learns that people do care about him multiple times this season, and then keeps on flipping back and forth. And this just felt very strange with that.
Yeah.
So I get it, these holograms are very clearly sentient, because they've been modified by this one programmer. And so, they shouldn't be treated as not people, because they are people. But then they try to rescue some holograms that are literally calculators.
You're right. And the leader gets infuriated when they're like, well, we got to do whatever we can to save them. I'm like, you can't save them.
We have to give them personality and give them freedom. They have no ability to have any of that. They are literally, they're just a hologram with a basic program. There's no sentience in there at all.
It's like, it's surprised they didn't show up holding plungers. You know what I mean?
They're basically holographic versions of Clippy. It's
oh, that could be the name of the episode. I think I kind of like that better. Keep talking.
So there's this whole thing where they're like, and then you also get this Bajoran hologram. He gets a Messiah complex, which is mildly hilarious, seeing that he's a Bajoran. So he's like, I will be the savior of all of these holograms, and you will be their other savior, and blah blah blah. And it's like, dude, okay, that's a bit much. But he doesn't learn, and eventually, they're trying to figure out how to get. Supposedly, they're trying to make a holograms only paradise on a Class Y planet. Which Iden, the leader,
thank you.
He wants to kill everyone that's oppressing them. It's like, okay,
sure, why not?
It's like, that's the solution.
Can't we do it with a little more murder?
Yeah, the solution is to murder the people that you're that you have problems with. Good, yeah,
Right.
okay.
That's very that's not very Bajoran. Well,
I
I
mean,
don't know,
it's
Bajoran's
it's a
revolution.
little Bajoran, but it's not
Maybe.
very evolved of you.
Yeah,
For one who
exactly.
claims to be superior and better. Yeah, let's go
spiritual. Like
yeah,
like a
let's go
Bajoran.
kill people. But like the Cardassian scientist, like she's working on that, trying to get that to work. But then you find out like he wants to weaponize it and do all this terrible things. So eventually he gets put on the system and he gets decompiled basically because he screws it up.
Right.
Although kind of the side implication is that maybe the doctor helped that happen.
Yeah.
So that he couldn't be recompiled and come back.
Oh no! How sad.
Yeah,
He's lost.
It's like, oh no, the doctor now committed murder. Great. It's not. This is not the first nor the last time we'll see a Starfleet doctor do that. But it's kind of unfortunate.
It's hologram. And at the end, he and Janeway have the big heart-to-heart, and it's not like he's really gonna get punished because he's the doctor and he's a hologram. So if they turn him off, then they don't have a doctor. So
he also said like you could reset my parameters, and she's like, no, you're a person. I'm not going to do that. And it's a very good, like that's a very good conversation that recognizes his personhood.
Yeah.
And then it felt like in the next couple episodes that kind of like backslid, which was weird.
Yeah. They do quite a bit of it. So not my favorite.
It's not bad, but it's just kind of, it's a tired trope that gets more tired as the season goes on, and it's just,
if they could do it and leave it alone, which they don't. So, well, speaking of tropes, but one that I'd like quite a bit more, episode 11 is yours.
All right, episode 11, Shattered. Directed by Terry Wendell, story by Mike Sussman and Michael Taylor, teleplay by Michael Taylor, aired January 17th of 2001. Voyager is fractured into several time periods by an accident, and only Chakotay is able to move between them, for at least the beginning. In the process, meeting old friends and old foes from the previous 6 seasons. This is kind of like Shades of Grey, but better.
Yeah, and I loved it. We get Martha Hackett back as Seska, which is great. I always loved Seska. Probably maybe the best villain we ever had in this show.
One of the best villains in Voyager, at least. And we also get the return of the Iron Bun.
Yeah, that's right. And we get future versions of Icheb and Naomi Wildman in one of the time periods. And it's kind of bittersweet to see Icheb because we do meet him again as an adult when he's murdered, or he's tortured and then murdered in season 1 of Picard, which is kind of sad.
I still don't recognize that as canon, but that's
I mean,
that's fine.
Unfortunately, it is, and it's kind of a bummer. But if it's on screen, it's canon. Doesn't mean we're always going to like it. I mean, we have to consider Discovery canon.
Well, it's an alternate universe. We'll just go there.
Sure, why not? Well, yes, it worked for JJ, but. Yeah, I really dug this. And again, you've got a lower-ish stakes kind of episode. It's like, well, everything's going to work out. But what is it? The ship gets struck by space lightning.
Basically,
something. And then it gets all wicky-wacky. I like Chakotay as a character, so I'd like to kind of see him take the center seat. Well, you get some nice Chakotay Janeway. He's with Janeway from season 1. And she's trying to plug him from information. And at one point, she catches wind of everything that happened because he's talking to the doctor from season 1. That's what's in the holodeck. But we get the pitcher plants come back, and then obviously
the macrophage comes back.
Yeah, you've got Seska during the time that the Kazon had the ship, and she tries to hijack his plan because he's got to go around and inject. It always comes back to the gel packs. He's got to inject the gel packs with a serum that will help it's very Star Trek-y, bring the time periods back into alignment. And so it's great to see, her back in motion because I love the character. And you get an answer to what happened on the Resolutions planet. Like, did Janeway and Chakotay hook up? Unless he's lying about that, which would make sense. Maybe he doesn't want to tell this woman that, hey, you don't know me, but we're going to, bang next year or something from your point of view. So, maybe he's, trying to spare feelings. I don't know. But she comes right down and asks us, well, how close? You said we're friends. How close of friends are we? Wink, wink. You know what I mean? So I like this episode very much. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Myself.
I thought it was pretty neat. We actually do get a spiritual successor to it in Prodigy, where they do the exact same thing.
Oh, okay.
Except they also jump between timelines, not just time periods.
Right.
So that
was the mirror episode
variation on a theme.
Yeah.
But so this is fun. I liked that they actually gave Chakotay prime character privileges.
Yeah,
for once
he gets to be
in
the
a
main.
while.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Because he's kind of been in the backseat for quite a bit of the last season and a half.
Yeah.
So this was something where he actually gets to problem solve and do things on his own, and it was actually, I quite liked that. And then in the finale where he has to fight Seska, and then he brings everybody from the various time periods in together to try to solve.
Right, yeah, because we get old Borgie 7 of 9 and her drones,
which is quite a funny moment where it's like, oh, we're all gonna die, and then Borg 7 of 9 shows up and just beats Seska to hell, and then walks away. Like it's pretty
cool
funny
stuff. So this is actually the second time we get Seska back after her death, which was at the beginning of season 3. Because we get her at the end of season 3 as a lethal holodeck character, and then we get her here. Which is awesome. Like I said, one of my favorite villains, certainly from the first chunk of the show. So cool. All right. Next we jump into an episode that I actually like, that I kind of teared up a little bit. There were some really good emotional moments in this one. Episode 12 is Lineage. Peter Lorreson, very familiar name from TNG, doing the directing. James Caan, I'm assuming not Jimmy Caan, the actor, because that would have been weird, did the writing. From January of 2001, B'Elanna, now married to Tom Paris, as we know, discovers that she is pregnant.
In the most hilarious way ever. You have a parasite. 7 grabs the tricorder. No. Each have no. That's not how that works.
Yeah. Well, let's have now it's time to have the birds and the bees talk. The doctor tells them in a roundabout way that they're going to have a daughter, but B'Elanna's unresolved fear of childhood traumas, which she suffered from being part of a Klingon girl growing up amongst humans, makes her determined to remove her child's Klingon DNA. Wow. This really dug deep. This is, I think, without a doubt, the very best episode of the series for the B'Elanna Torres character. Because she was very edgy from the get-go. But you never really knew a ton. There was a little exploration of her Klingon
during the phage bit
division during the phage in season 1. They jumped right on that. They kind of jumped right to that moment. I think it felt unearned at that time, but there wasn't a lot of backstory to it, where this shows you, why is B'Elanna so quick to anger? Is it just because of her Klingon half? No, it's from something that is very common to people all over this very real world. Almost anyone I've ever met, is that PTSD and childhood traumas will affect you as an adult. It's going to affect the way you react to things. Once bitten, twice shy, or you were bullied as a child, which ends up happening here. Or you have a parent that leaves, and you blame yourself, which
also happens here.
Which also happens here. It absolutely does. And being that I've been divorced twice, which many people know. I have 2 sons, which many people know. And I was childhood divorced myself, and struggled for a lot of years with my dad before we eventually became very close when I was an adult. But any child who has a parent that leaves has that kind of feeling of, what could I have done differently, in a childlike type of reasoning? And the simple fact of the matter is, you couldn't.
No,
that's really not how things work. But watching her go through this, and again, I've mentioned before, because I've seen these episodes many times, and to get through them, because we do 6 or 7 at a time, I'll have them on the background of the TV in my office if I'm at home that day. But I definitely paused and watched certainly the last act or 2 of this. I got a little tear in my eye when B'Elanna says, in flashback, if you're so unhappy, why don't you just leave? And it flashes back to Preston, and that's exactly what he did 2 weeks later. And I'm like, oh, that was a heartbreaker for me. And at the end of it, it's not the magic, like, oh, all my child, when she has, she and Tom have this heart-to-heart moment, and she's not like, oh, I'm cured. Trauma you always carry with you. It never really goes away. But you do learn to find ways to, it's an expression I heard a long time ago with, the traumas that I've had in my life, which I just described very briefly. The pain doesn't really go away. You just kind of make room for it, So you learn how to deal with something, and it goes in its little box, and there it stays, and hopefully it stays
around
there.
It and through it.
Exactly correct. So this for me, I'll jump ahead and said, for me, this was hands down the best of this batch, because I would say in a show that is more episodic, and a show that is a little bit more science fiction-y and kind of anomaly of the week, I feel like this is one of the episodes, definitely top 5, that touches something that's kind of very human in every one of us, and an experience that anyone I've ever met has shared. So I absolutely love this episode.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that I can really say all that much more.
Yeah, sorry. No, I know I was monologuing on that one, but no, it really touched me. Kind of in a good way. So
yeah,
no, I thought it was really great.
Mm-hmm.
That was really great. And you know what? The next episode's pretty good too. So why don't you talk about that?
All right. Episode 13 is Repentance, directed by Mike Vihar, story by Mike Sussman and Robert Dougherty, teleplay by Robert Dougherty, aired on January 31st of 2001. Prisoners are brought onto Voyager from a damaged alien vessel, and the crew must deliver them to their destination for execution. Seven's nanoprobes are used to help heal one of the prisoners. Shenanigans ensue.
Shenanigans. Great guest actor in this, and I had to click on it because I know this guy's face, even though he's wearing
tons of prosthetics.
He's wearing tons of prosthetics, but it's kind of in the Star Trek way where it's like, yeah, I still recognize the dude's face. His name is Jeff Kober, and he plays Iko, who's the main character. What a great character actor, particularly for things in the 90s and early 2000s. Mm-hmm. As an older man, he appeared in an episode of The Walking Dead in seasons 4 or 5, where he was one of the grittiest scenes where he had cornered Rick, who is our hero, and Rick's young son. And I had to have that was a real life pause. He had cornered Rick and Rick's son Carl, and they were from a group of banditos, and they were going to hurt Carl. And Rick literally bites this guy's throat out of it, bites into this guy's throat and tears it out. So it's like one of the most. That's really the way I also remember Jeff Kober. But
all right.
He was in all kinds of shows and is just an exceptional actor. But he's a little rough. He's a little country, So he's kind of got that. I would say redneck edge to a lot of the characters he plays. But in this, he does a phenomenal job working with Jerry Ryan because he's injured at one point. Like I said, the nanoprobes heal him, but they also kind of fix the part of his brain that makes him a serial killer,
which is sympathy.
Yeah, makes him lack empathy and sympathy, and you start to see him discover his. I'll say humanity, but by comparison, even though he's not a human being character. But in this, and this is a great kind of prime directive. We have to respect the way that other cultures work. That Seven is like, well, I don't agree. I think it sucks. In the culture for this race, which now that it's off the screen, I don't remember the name of the race, the Bloody or whatever. It's Star Trek names end in a vowel, pretty much. Something with an I, an E, or an A, or a Y. Their justice system works out by the family of the person who suffered the murder in this case gets to decide the fate of the criminal, and they also get to hear and decide upon any appeal.
Yep.
So at the end of it, we have Iko having finally gained empathy and having feeling for what he's done, making an appeal to his family and saying, I can never make up for what I did, but now I truly understand that how horrible what I did was wrong, and I had asked that you give me the chance to make up for it by being a productive member of society. And we get this long beat where they're waiting for a decision, and he and Seven are in astrometrics and talking about stars and stuff. And Janeway has to walk in and say, well, I'm sorry, the family has decided not to commune your sentence, so you got to go. Seven is like, well, I just don't agree. It's not fair. He understands now. He wants to turn his life around, and it doesn't always work that way. And Janeway says, well, it's not our decision. That's how the Prime Directive works. We have to respect the rules.
Yeah. And Seven also does like the kind of a false equivalency where she's like, he killed people.
Right.
He killed at least one person.
And I killed people.
And I killed thousands as a drone, and I haven't been punished. Right. The false equivalency is you were being forced to do
You were punished.
You were a drone. Yeah. And that is what Janeway tells her is like, you lost 20 years of your life as a Borg drone where you had no freedom and you barely knew who you were. So, which is very different.
Right. And this guy, you know, whether he was criminally insane or not, still has to be accountable
Yeah,
for
he
his
still
actions.
made
It's
the
not
choice.
like,
Yes,
he doesn't get a shot of nanoprobes and he's like, I'm cured, and I also am cured of having any kind of accountability
which is
for
what we
my actions.
see the other guy, Joleg, try to do, where he
Right.
like when you first meet these characters, you have Aiko, he's kind of the violent one and tries to hurt Seven and all of that. And then you have Joleg, who seems like the really calm, like, I'm here under false pretenses. I'm really such a nice guy. I'm here because, they're racist and stuff, because at least that's how it's implied. And then you find out, like, no, he's actually a schmuck. And so he should be in prison.
And that's actor F.J. Rio, who was also Munez on DS9, who was one of O'Brien's guys who died quite tragically in the episode. I think was it The Ship, beginning of season 5, where they were trapped on the Jem'Hadar ship, and we learned about the Jem'Hadar's famous anticoagulant weapon, which he gets hit by one and they can't stop the bleeding. Anyway,
stop bleeding.
So great episode. So I have to say that of the ones I think that we've talked about,
these two.
This was a good several weeks in the writers' room, or producing these scripts, because I just really feel like they nailed it.
I also like how when we have Aiko making his plea to the family, he's not like, it's not the I am not guilty. It's just that it's I have come to understand what I have done, and I am now repentant for my crime, and I'm asking for leniency so that I can grow. So it's not an appeal to emotion. It's not well, I don't deserve this anymore because I have no connection to it. It's like he recognizes, I did wrong, I caused pain, I did all of this, but I'm asking for your mercy. So there's something like even though they don't show it and they're kind of jerks for that, I would say, even though yes, we understand it was horrible and da-da-da. So I'm not negating that. But even though they don't show mercy, there's something really interesting about how he goes about it. He doesn't act, he doesn't presume upon their mercy. He doesn't act entitled to it. He understands, especially because it's how their legal system, how their moral system works, that his fate is determined by them and they don't owe him anything. And so I think that that's a very interesting way to look at it. I think it's a somewhat, while the system is not ours and doesn't work the same way, I think it's kind of a healthy way to look at it in a way. Where it's I am not entitled, if I have wronged you, I'm not entitled to your forgiveness, but I ask for it anyway. Because that'll help us both heal. So I think that that's a good thing, even though it's very subtle. So I think this is where some of that writing in older Star Trek really shines. This is an example of it. Instead of some of the totally 2x4 over the head stuff that even they did even in older Star Trek, but just it's a little bit more common now.
And we have more of it coming this season. All right, so kind of a, like I said, going through those first few episodes, kind of a lame crap. Some of it is kind of formulaic, and then we finish up kind of strong. So I've already said Lineage, my favorite. Repentance would be a pretty close second, but definitely
I'm kind of leaning towards Repentance. I want to say Lineage because I also like that, but just to be slightly different, because I think that some of the subtleties in the writing is good on both. I really like the writing on both of these episodes.
And then again, I have a quasi equal tie for my least favorite because Nightingale is so uninspiring. I don't even remember the details about it. That's how forgettable it is. But I also thought Flesh and Blood, and again, it was a double length. It's like, what kind of story did it tell that really made that valid? When like I said, I can't unlock my comparison between that and the previous Hirogen segment back in season 4 with the Killing Game, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. Lots of great set pieces, cool story told. So I think I'll probably go with Flesh and Blood, just because I think it was a bigger waste, particularly because it was double length and this was supposed to be, and again, it was on during sweep. So this was a hook of some kind, but I didn't feel hooked. I felt disengaged. So what about you?
I would kind of lean in the same direction because Nightingale, for all of its faults, it was just a single episode. And it had an interesting exploration of the chain of command and how that works and how do you do that. And kind of tongue in cheek talking about how Harry's never been promoted. Like there's things going for it, whereas Flesh and Blood,
Yeah.
it's the same trope. We've seen it before and we see it again, and it's just not that interesting.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Well, that's our show. So we will actually not be back with you the regularly scheduled next time. I have a vacation. Peter has a vacation. So we will be back with you in November, where we will move forward into talking about more Voyager. But we're actually going to cover, oh God, I'm not looking at the schedule, but I think we're covering The Captains, which was a great movie that came out in 2011. That is a documentary. We've not talked about a documentary in what feels like a while. So I'm looking forward to that. We may or may not have a guest for that. I have to check the schedule. But enjoy our hiatus. Definitely check out our other shows, and please do visit us over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite to kind of keep you going. The next episode of Secret Friends Unite, Oops All Thunderdome, comes out this week. And as I mentioned, we're talking about Tron Ares, but we've got a lot of other fun stuff planned. Talking about a lot of movies. We talk about some TV shows and some comics as well. So with that, Peter, where do people find you out there?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas on most social platforms. I'm not terribly active, but if you poke at me, I might say something. Mostly I'm on our Discords, the Secret Friends Unite Discord primarily. You can also find me on ELH's Twitch and YouTube channel playing a engineer, and you can also find me on behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior.
Excellent. I'm on most of the major socials as VC3 THECEETHREE. I've been having a lot of fun on the new Secret Friends Unite TikTok and mirroring those same videos on the Secret Friends Unite Instagram and on our YouTube channel. Just doing shorts, 2-3 minutes, telling you about something that I'm enjoying, just to kind of keep things going. Again, follow us on all of those places, Secret Friends Unite, and really on all socials, like I said, also up to and including TikTok. But friends, thanks for tuning in. Love having you. I'm going to tell you as always that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.